Now, as the older kids are with us this afternoon, you'll be pleased to know it won't be a long sermon like usual. Okay, it'll be a shorter sermon. All the adults are going, oh, phew. Right, now, Acts of the Apostles. You've got the four Gospels, which are Matthew, Mark, Luke, John. They record the life of Jesus, and then we have Acts of the Apostles, which records the life of the church. And what we read in Acts, okay, should be repeated in every church across the world, down through the centuries. So what we read in Acts should be repeated right here in Gateway Church, this small local church in Barnsley, in the 21st century. And we're just looking at one passage over the next, last week, this week, and I think probably next week, it's Acts chapter 18, the passage Paul just read, verses 1 to 11. And there's certain hallmarks just from that passage that we should see indeed in our own church. You know, a badge of honour. You know, sometimes the kids say, yeah, badge of honour. 5 things, just 5 things from this passage which we could say it's a badge of honour. Okay, as a church, I'm proud to have this badge, these hallmarks. Not that we particularly revel, but 5 things. First one, just to recap from last week, we thought of 3 points last week. The first one is this: all things that we should expect as a local church. Things, in fact, that we've experienced so far in the Gateway story over the last 2 years. First of all, the first point from last week was expect. Can you remember?
Opposition.
Oh, well done, whoever said that. Expect opposition. Okay, because in Acts 18 we read about Paul, the Apostle Paul. He goes into the synagogue in Corinth, which is a big city, 1st century Roman Empire, and it's part of present-day Greece. And he goes into the synagogue, he tries to reason with the people there and persuade them that Jesus is Lord. And then we read in verse 6, the Jews opposed Paul. They didn't like him. You know, perhaps sometimes at school, I don't know, you kids, perhaps the older ones, sometimes people can sort of get cross with you because they don't like you. Well, they didn't like Paul then. And in fact, they became abusive towards him. Not nice, is it, being abused verbally? And so Paul said, right, I'm off. And he left the synagogue, he left the religious people, and he went next door to the house of Titius Justus, a good Roman name that. So he went from the religious world to the secular world. All right? So Paul said, right, blow you lot, I'm going next door to some people who will listen. All right? And that's where we're at. That was just the first thing. Expect opposition. Expect, the second point from last week, and half of my talk this afternoon is recapping from last week. Second point, expect team ministry. Expect team ministry, because Paul, there's no such thing as a lone ranger. Okay? We don't want to be loners. And when it comes to church, no, we're together as church family. Church family. And it's fascinating how we read in Acts 18 there how 2 Christians, they'd been kicked out of Rome because they were Jews, and they teamed up with Paul, a married couple called Claudia and Priscilla. And we read elsewhere how, for example, at the end of 2 Corinthians, so 2 letters written to that church in Corinth, and the second letter, the Apostle Paul says to that church at Corinth, the churches in the province of Asia send you greetings. Aquila and Priscilla greet you warmly in the Lord, and so does the church that meets at their house. So you see, by the time the Apostle Paul, wrote the second letter to that church in Corinth, Aquila and Priscilla had gone back to Rome, and Paul says, hey, they say hello. And they've got a church going in Rome in their house. Fancy having a church in your own house? Hey, that'd be good, wouldn't it? That's what they did. And then also there's the Silas. Good name that, in it, Silas. And Timothy. Do we have a Timothy here or a Tim? No? It's just 2 other people who teamed up with Paul. And if you want some kind of, something to do for half an hour this week, do some detective work. Go through the New Testament and try and work out every time Silas is mentioned or Timothy. And they're always working with Paul in a team. And they're on mission for Jesus. And so there's no such thing as a lone ranger. We do things together. Hey, church, we're a team, aren't we, today? Yep. That's it, team ministry. And part of church is lots of small teams within the big team. Like the Shine team, the hospitality team, the welcome team, the tech team, the music team, we can go on. The food bank team. If you're not part of a team, join a team. That's part of the big team called Gateway. And the good thing about teams is, of course, it's good for accountability. All right? And it's important that you hold me accountable. It's important that you ask me questions as the pastor. That you say, hey, Mark, how's your prayer life going? Or how's the marriage? Now, nobody's asked me that for a while. How's your marriage? You need to ask me. I sometimes ask you.
How's your marriage?
It's all right, mate. I think so. Anyway, we're moving house. It's a bit stressful at the moment. We're just about holding it together, aren't we, Mary Sue? Ask me questions. How's the giving going? Because I ask you questions sometimes. We're accountable to each other. Hold me accountable. We're part of a team. And it's good for encouragement being part of a team. And in every team there should be a role model. Now there's loads of role models out there in the world, isn't there, in the celebrity culture. Come on, kids. Give me some names of role models that you like, celebs, that you look up to perhaps. Or older ones if running short of ideas. Any celebs out there that you look up to? Simon. Simon who?
Cowell.
Simon Cowell. Right. Yeah. Whether he's a good role model or not, I don't know. That's open for question. But thank you for that. Any other role models that you perhaps look up to in the world?
David Beckham.
Sorry?
David Beckham.
David Beckham. Yeah. He's got a strong marriage. Good family man. Yeah. Good footballer. Well, he's all right, I suppose. Any others? One more example.
Hassel.
Bobby Hassel, yay! That's right, captain of Barnsley Football Club, a friend of Gateway Church. Yeah, great role model, a Christian. And that's the thing, in every team you have role models. And hopefully people setting an example. And we need good Christian role models, don't we? And Paul, he says, he writes to Timothy, he wrote 2 letters to Timothy in the New Testament. And for example, he says in 2 Timothy 10, he says, you, Timothy, or Timmy, or Tim, you, however, know all about my teaching, my way of life, my purpose, faith, patience, love, endurance, persecutions, sufferings, and so on. In other words, Paul is saying to Timothy, Timothy, I've been an open book to you. You know all about me. I've been a father figure to you. I've been a role model. I've been setting an example to you. And basically Paul is saying to Timothy, right, you run with it now. You run with the good news of Jesus. You've learnt it from me, I've learnt it from Jesus, and it's been passed on. It's like the relay race. Who likes the relay race? Right, yep. And what do you do in a relay race? Apart from running? You pass on the baton. And that's it with Christianity. Some of the older folks here, in a way, we've looked up to. Okay, there's folks here who've been Christians for years. And I look up to them. And they've inspired us at Gateway Church because they've rolled up their sleeves and got stuck in. Fantastic, the older folks here. And in a way, they've passed on the baton. They're still running, but they're getting tired. And it's the younger ones need to run with the baton now. We all need role models, and that's what's a good thing about team ministry. Jesus had a team. How many did he have in his team? He had 12. Did somebody say 5? He had at least, it was under, nearly right, mate. He had 12. 12 apostles, disciples, and of course many others too. Listen, we're growing as a church. And as we're growing, we're becoming more and more stretched. And we need you to be part of a team. And, please think about it. And, it's easy to imagine, the dream team coming in. People coming in to do all the roles. Yes, we're to pray. Jesus said, the harvest is plentiful, but the workers are few. Ask the Lord of the harvest therefore, to send out workers into his harvest field. So Jesus is saying, yeah, loads to do. Big harvest field. Pray, ask God to send in workers. You know? But part of that, I think, is this. That there are workers right here today who need to play a part. Potential workers. That's it. You know, God can use you more than you could ever imagine. And you're probably thinking, well, I'm not much good at this or that. I'm shy or I get nervous. So do I. I get very nervous. Most Sunday afternoons, I say to Mary Sue in the car on the way here, I'm feeling nervous, don't I? I'm just ordinary human, just like you. God can use you in extraordinary ways. So as we grow as a church, as we think about starting a second Gateway church, because we can't grow any more here, can we? No, we can't. We're going to start a second Gateway church where we need the workers. We need to pray for God to send workers in, but I reckon there's workers here as well. Got great potential. So that's all to do with team ministry. And actually sometimes there's friction, isn't there, in team ministry? You know, sometimes so-and-so niggles so-and-so. You know, it's like kids, isn't it? When they niggle each other and they pinch, you know. Have you seen that happen between kids? What? I'm not looking at our 3 kids. They're all looking at me like this. You know what it is between siblings? You know, brothers, sisters, brothers. When the other annoys you and you pull their hair, don't you? Or you pinch them when mum's not looking. It's like that in church life. Except hopefully you don't pinch the person. But inside you're thinking, That is church life. There's probably people here today who feel niggled by other people. That's church life. You know what the Apostle Paul says? He says this in Ephesians chapter 4 verse 2. He says, where is it now? Be completely humble and gentle. Be patient, bearing with one another in love. Isn't that great? So when you feel niggled, okay, if it's really serious, you need to go and speak to the person. Go straight to the person. Okay, that's the Jesus way. But if it's a niggle, just bear with them in love. All right? And then that'd be fine. Don't you think so? Yeah. That'd be great. Yeah, there's going to be upsets. That's what happens in teams. But yeah, bear with each other in love. Be gentle. And I know a church minister, when somebody used to upset him, really upset him, he'd bake them a cake. And I reckon, whilst he was beating up the batter, you've got it, he was getting all his frustrations out. Then he'd bake the cake and turn round, turn up on the door. Oh. But of course, as the reputation developed, people realised that when the minister turned up with a cake... So don't think when I turn up with a cake, don't think you've upset me, don't think that. But that's just, Right, bear with each other in love. And the third point from last week, we're still on last week. The third point from last week was this: expect risk-taking and God's provision. Okay, because there's no such thing as the comfort zone. As we step out, God provides. He provides people and ministries and buildings and finances and much more. And that's what's happened in the Gateway story so far. We can say, as we've stepped out in faith, trusting God, He has provided people, ministries, CAP, the food bank, the confidence building course, Older and Bolder, Shine, and so on. He provides buildings and finances. That's been our testimony. Okay, so it's all here. You see, it's all here in Acts 18. The opposition expect that. Expect the team ministry. And, of course, expect risk-taking. And when you step out, God provides. Because here, the Apostle Paul, he left the synagogue and he goes next door. And Crispus, the synagogue ruler, and his entire household, they join him. They join him next door. That's incredible, if you think of it. imagine a church building, and the vicar, let's say it's the vicar, I mean, it could be the priest or the pastor, it's all the same thing really. The vicar becomes a Christian. Right? Imagine that. That's what's happening here. The synagogue ruler believes, he becomes a Christian. And then the vicar, he leaves the church building, and he goes next door to the pub to start a new church with a church planter. Can you imagine that happening? That's what's happening. That is what is happening here. Crispus, the synagogue ruler, he and his whole family, they believe, and they go next door to join Paul. And this new church starting up in this house of Titius Justus. Here's my fourth point, and it's my only point for today. I said it was going to be a short sermon, didn't I? Sorry. There's 5 points, fourth point, fifth point next week. Will you come back next week for the fifth point? Right. Fourth point is this. Expect conversions. Expect people to be converted. Expect people to become new Christians. Expect people to cross over from darkness to light, from Satan to Jesus Christ. Expect it. Expect people's lives to be changed. That's what happened here with Crispus and his family. And in fact, many of the Corinthians, verse 8, who heard Paul, they believed and were baptized. Expect it. We've seen it, haven't we, at Gateway Church? The last 2 years we've seen people, not in their dozens and hundreds, but we've seen individual lives here. Some are here today. They've believed and they've become new people, new creations. Expect it. Will you expect it in the next chapter for people to come to faith in Jesus? Look, there's many parts of Barnsley that we need to reach with the other churches. Can you name, let's think of 10 areas in Barnsley, okay, that you can name. Okay, I'll start with the Shine group here today, okay, present here. Think of some areas of Barnsley. Just shout them out. We'll try and go for 10. Home, right. I'm thinking, that's the first place to start. I'm thinking like, say Monk Bretton. Okay, that's an area of Barnsley, right? So Monk Bretton. Keep going. Worsborough Common. Ardsley. Lunwood. North Gorber. Or Gorber. Aversley. Redbrook. Hoyland. Royston. Birdwell. Oh, we've done it. We can go on. Do you know how many people live in the Barnsley Metropolitan Borough Council?
270,000.
I checked it up on the census that took place in 2011. It is 231,221. Who's the one? That's nearly 250,000 people. That's, imagine Wembley. That's about 2.5 Wembleys and a bit more, full of people. That's how many people live in this borough. The Apostle Paul, verse 9, one night the Lord spoke to Paul in a vision. He said, don't be afraid, the Lord said to Paul. Keep on speaking, don't be silent. I'm with you. No one is going to attack you because I have many people in this city. We need to remember our vision for this church, which is to reach every person in Barnsley with the good news of Jesus. Can you say that with me? To reach every person in Barnsley with the good news of Jesus. In partnership with other churches. In partnership with other churches. That's right. That's our vision. To reach 231,000 people. Well, we've got 70 already. That's good, isn't it? Plus. And there's other churches as well. We've got a long way to go. And that's our vision. And we just need to keep going. Well, there's loads more to say. I'm going to stop there. There's loads more to say on point 4. And there's point 5. Oh, I can't wait for next week, can you? Expect conversions. Thank you, said whoever said no. No, they can't wait. Expect conversions. Expect people to come to faith. More about that next week. Let's have a 1 minute pause, 1 minute break, and then you can ask any question just for the last few minutes. So as we break for this 1 minute, I want to ask you a very quick question, and it's this. Do you think God can use you in ways that you never thought of? All right? Do you think God can use you in his work in ways you never thought of? Right? 1 minute. Away we go, then it's Q&As.